You did not have a beginning. You simply were. On a colony world named Proxima Ceti 5, a place of red skies and strange, glowing fungi. The colonists found you in a field of that blue glowing life. You were small, perhaps 6 years old by their measure. You wore simple clothes of an unknown material. They felt like woven metal but were soft as silk. There was no ship wreckage. There were no footprints leading to you. Just a small child, sitting calmly in the pulsing light. You did not cry or scream. You just watched them. Your eyes took in their faces, their worry, and their fear. They spoke to you in their clipped colonial tongue. You understood the intent behind the sounds, but you did not have words of your own to give back. They gave you a name, Eli. It was a name for a lost one. It felt temporary. It was not you. They took you to the main settlement, a small dome of reinforced plasticrete. It was a tiny bubble of humanity on a vast alien world. You sat in their sterile medical bay. They scanned you. They took samples of your strange clothes. They found nothing that made sense. You were human in every way their machines could measure. But you felt nothing like them. You saw the world in a different way. You saw the lines of force in the air. You saw the math that held the dome together. You saw the silent song of the universe. And you were a part of it. The silent song became a whisper. At first, it was quiet, gentle numbers that flowed through your mind like a stream. You would watch a flower unfurl its petals. You would see the perfect spiral sequence it followed. You understood its growth as a mathematical truth. The colonists thought you were just quiet, a thoughtful, strange little boy. They did not know about the storm gathering inside you. The whispers grew louder. They became a constant hum of information. The prime numbers were a steady beat. The equations for planetary motion were a rising chorus. You saw the calculus of light itself. It streamed through the windows. It bounced off every surface in predictable, beautiful patterns. The noise in your head became a roar, a symphony of star science playing all at once. There was no silence. There was no peace. You would sit in your small room. You would press your hands against your head, trying to make the numbers stop. But they were you, and you were them. The logic of gravity pulled at you. The formulas for time and space stretched in your mind. You felt the grand, beautiful, and terrifying engine of reality, and you were trapped at its very center. The storm did not break you. It began to sharpen you. You had to let it out. The colony governor was a practical woman. She did not know what to do with you. A silent boy who stared at walls was not a threat, but it was a mystery she could not solve. She made a call across the empty light years. She called the Terran Alliance. She told them about the boy with no past. She told them something was happening. The Alliance was always interested in mysteries, especially ones on the frontier. A science vessel dropped out of warp above the colony. Its name was the Stargazer, a fitting name for a ship that sought answers in the dark. They sent a team to the surface. It was led by a man named Dr. Aris Thorne. He was a brilliant man, but he was also a man who trusted only what he could measure. He saw a small, silent child. He saw trauma, not a cosmic key. They brought you aboard the Stargazer. The ship was clean and white and cold. It smelled of recycled air and antiseptic. They ran their tests. They put you in machines that hummed and clicked. They mapped your brain. They sequenced your genes for the 10th time. Everything came back normal. Perfectly, frustratingly normal. Dr. Thorne grew impatient. He thought perhaps this was some elaborate colonial prank. He had better things to do, like figuring out why his coffee replicator kept making his drink lukewarm. That was a real problem. You knew what they wanted. An answer, an explanation. But you had no words. You only had the numbers. The beautiful, crushing, all-consuming numbers. You had to show them. You had to make them see the language of the universe. In your small, white room aboard the Stargazer, you found your canvas. There was a metal plate on the wall, an access panel for some system you did not care about. You waited for them to bring you your meal. The tray was made of a hard polymer. You ate the tasteless nutrient paste. Then you took the edge of the tray, and you began to write. You carved into the white paint of the access panel. You scratched out the equations that flooded your mind. It was not a mindless scrawl. Every line was perfect. Every symbol was precise. You wrote the formula for folding space. You wrote the physics of a stable wormhole. You wrote the secret math that held stars together. It was a map to everywhere and everywhen. You felt a sense of relief. The roaring storm in your head quieted to a manageable gale. A junior crewman came to collect your tray. He saw the wall and sighed. He thought it was just angry graffiti. He was about to call for a cleaning drone. But then he looked closer. He was a warp engineering student. He recognized a symbol, a variation of a Jar-Tannen equation. But this version was different. It was elegant. It solved the energy paradox he had studied for years. He ran from the room. He went to find Dr. Thorne. He told him the boy had written something impossible. Thorne dismissed him at first. Then curiosity won. Thorne went to see for himself. He stood before the wall. He stared at your work. His jaw slowly dropped. He did not understand all of it, but he understood enough. He understood that this was not the work of a child. This was the language of creation itself. Dr. Thorne assembled a team, the best minds in the Alliance, physicists, engineers, experts in star science. They flew to your location on the fastest ships they had. They stood before your wall of equations. They stared in silent awe. Some said it was alien. Some said it was a message from a higher power. Thorne knew better. It was from you. He looked at you, the small boy sitting on the floor. And for the first time, he saw you not as a problem, but as the answer. Your equations were a blueprint, a detailed, flawless design for a new kind of star drive. It did not push a ship through space. It pulled space around the ship, created a bubble of reality, and moved it. The Alliance Council was skeptical. The resources required were immense. The science was so far beyond them, it felt like magic. But Thorne was a changed man. He argued for you. He showed them the math. He showed them the simulations. The potential was infinite. A ship with this drive could cross the galaxy in an instant. Humanity could be everywhere at once. The Council, swayed by the promise, approved the project. They would build one ship, a test vessel. They named it the Wanderer. It was a ship born from a child's mind. The Wanderer was a strange and beautiful thing. It was not built in a line like other ships. It was grown in a sphere of magnetic fields. Its hull was a smooth, seamless curve of silver. It had no visible engines, no weapon ports. It was a perfect droplet of metal hanging in the void. Inside, the ship was just as strange. The corridors curved in gentle arcs. The light came from the walls themselves. At its heart was the drive core, a sphere of contained space-time, humming with a power that baffled everyone. Everyone but you. You stood on the bridge. You looked at the swirling energy in the core. And you saw a familiar song. You were its conductor. Your first journey was not a grand ceremony. It was a quiet moment on the bridge of the Wanderer. Just you, Dr. Thorne, and a small, hand-picked crew. They were nervous. Their hands hovered over consoles. Their eyes darted between you and the star map. Thorne stood beside you. He asked you softly if you were ready. You did not nod. You simply reached out a small hand. You placed it on the cool glass of the main view screen. The numbers in your head aligned. You found the single perfect equation for your destination. A star system on the far side of the galaxy, a place that should have taken 1,000 years to reach. The universe outside the ship did not blur. It did not stretch into lines of light. It simply changed. The red giant that had filled the view screen was gone. In its place was a brilliant blue star. Alarms blared for a second before the navigator shut them off. His voice was a choked whisper. He confirmed their position. They had traveled over 90,000 light years. The journey had taken less time than a single heartbeat. The crew was silent. They looked at their instruments, then at the screen, then at you. You had crossed the galactic sea. You had done it in a single, silent breath. The age of exploration was over. The age of arrival had begun. You did not choose the destination at random. The numbers led you here, to this specific blue star, to the third planet orbiting it. It was a gas giant, a swirling ball of purple and gold clouds. The Wanderer's sensors detected nothing, no structures, no energy signals, no life. The crew was confused. Dr. Thorne asked you what you were looking for. You did not answer with words. You pointed. You pointed toward the planet's largest moon, a barren rock covered in craters. As the Wanderer approached the moon, something happened. The rock began to glow. Lines of light, like glowing circuits, spread across its surface. The light formed a complex geometric pattern. It was a language you understood. It was a greeting. From the surface of the moon, a single beam of pure white light shot out. It did not hit the ship. It enveloped it. The light was not hot. It was not energy as the crew understood it. It was information. It was consciousness. Inside the light, you were no longer on the bridge. You stood in a place of infinite white. There were no walls, no floor, no ceiling. Before you, shapes began to form. They were not solid. They were beings made of pure light and geometry. They shifted and flowed like living constellations. They were beautiful and ancient. They were the architects of the stars. In your mind, a new voice spoke, not the roar of numbers, but a clear, calm thought. It was a voice that felt older than time itself. It said, "Welcome, speaker. We have waited for you." You had met the Elder Ones. The Elder Ones communicated without sound. They showed you images. They shared feelings. They poured knowledge directly into your mind. They explained that they were an ancient race, one of the first to achieve consciousness in this universe. They had watched galaxies be born. They had guided the formation of stars. They considered themselves gardeners of reality. They pruned the branches of possibility. They nurtured life where they could. They were not gods. They were simply first. They showed you the history of the cosmos, the great expansions and contractions of existence, the cycles of creation and destruction. It was a cosmic dance of unimaginable scale. But they also showed you a discord in the harmony, a wrong note in the universal song. They showed you a darkness, a creeping, hungry thing that moved between the galaxies. It was not just an absence of light. It was an absence of existence. The Elder Ones projected a vision into the space around you. You saw a galaxy, vibrant and full of stars. Then, from its edge, a patch of utter blackness appeared. It was a hole in reality. It did not radiate anything. It did not reflect anything. It simply consumed. Stars that touched its edge did not explode. They just vanished. Planets, nebulae, entire solar systems, erased. The darkness grew, spreading like a stain. It devoured the entire galaxy in what felt like moments. The vision ended. The infinite white space felt colder. The elder ones shared a feeling of deep, ancient dread. This was the threat. This was the silence that ends. A darkness that consumed whole galaxies. You asked them, with your thoughts, what it was. How could something destroy existence itself? The elder ones explained the nature of the enemy. It was not a race. It was not an empire. It was a living paradox. A mathematical impossibility that had somehow gained a foothold in reality. It was a flaw in the source code of the universe. It was an equation that equaled zero, yet existed. They called it the void, a being or force whose very presence contradicted the laws of physics. Where it moved, reality broke down. Matter and energy were not destroyed. They were unwritten. They were made to have never existed at all. The elder ones had fought it before, billions of years ago. They had managed to push it back. They had sealed it away in a pocket dimension, a cosmic prison built from the strongest logic they could devise. But the prison was now failing. The paradox was solving its cage. It was beginning to leak back into your universe, and it was hungry. The elder ones were beings of logic and order. They could not comprehend the paradox enough to fight it directly. To fully grasp its nature would be to be erased by it. But you were different. You did not just see the numbers, you felt them. You were a bridge between the logical and the impossible. They had been watching you, waiting for you. You were the only one who could face the equation of ruin. The elder ones gave you a gift, not a weapon, but knowledge. They opened their collective consciousness to you. They showed you their understanding of light, not just as energy, but as a fundamental building block of reality. They showed you how light could be woven, how it could be solidified, how it could be used to create shields of pure force, how it could be focused into lances that could cut through space-time itself. You absorbed it all. The storm in your head grew again. But this time, it was not chaos. It was a focused, directed power. You saw new equations bloom in your mind. Formulas for shields made of hardened light. Designs for weapons that fired bolts of coherent space-time. You now had the tools. Humanity would be the forge. You had to go back. You had to prepare them. You returned to the Wanderer. To the crew, only a few minutes had passed. To you, it had been a lifetime. Dr. Thorne looked at you. He saw a change in your eyes. The distant, lost look was gone. It was replaced by a look of ancient purpose. You walked to the navigation console. You did not touch it. You simply looked at the star map. And you projected a course into it. A direct line back to the Sol system, back to Earth. There was no time to waste. The darkness was coming. You had to teach humanity how to forge a shield from the light. Your arrival in the Sol system sent a shockwave through the Alliance. The sudden appearance of the Wanderer, so far from its last known position, was impossible. But there it was, hanging in the black above Mars. You did not wait for quarantine protocols. You broadcast your knowledge directly into the Alliance network. A flood of new science. Equations for light manipulation that dwarfed anything they had ever conceived. Blueprints for shield emitters, schematics for lance cannons. a whole new paradigm of defense. At first, they thought it was a trick. Alien code, a virus. But your signature was on it, the unique mathematical fingerprint of the boy who wrote on walls. Dr. Thorne vouched for you. He told them of the Elder Ones. He spoke of the coming darkness. Some still hesitated. It was too much, too fast. But then, their own long-range sensors began to see it. A strange dimming at the edge of the galaxy. A patch of nothingness that was slowly growing. Fear became a powerful motivator. The shipyards of humanity went to work. They retrofitted every ship. They built new orbital defense platforms. They turned the Sol system into a fortress of light. It looked like a fool's errand, preparing for a ghost story. Then the ghost arrived. The darkness came. It did not arrive with a flash of light or a roar of engines. It simply appeared at the edge of the system. A vast, amorphous cloud of perfect black. It was larger than Jupiter. The light from distant stars bent around it, but none escaped it. It was a hole in the universe, a terrifying, silent void. The human fleet, gleaming with your new technology, formed a line of battle. Hundreds of ships, from small frigates to massive dreadnoughts. Their hulls glowed with the energy of their light shields. The siege of Sol began. The void moved forward, slow and inevitable. The first ships to touch its edge simply vanished. No explosion, no debris. Just gone. The fleet commanders felt a primal fear. How do you fight something that erases you? Then your weapons came online. Lances of pure white light, brighter than any star, shot from the human ships. They struck the surface of the void. Where they hit, the darkness recoiled. It was like striking smoke. But the smoke screamed with a silent, psychic energy. The battle raged. For hours, then days. The human fleet held the line. Your light cannons kept the void at bay. But the cost was high. Every ship that strayed too close was lost forever. The void was learning. It began to send out tendrils of darkness, probes of nothingness that dodged and weaved through the lances of light. They would touch a ship's shield. The shield would flare, then collapse. Then the ship would be gone. Your defenses were strong, but the paradox was stronger. It was adapting. It was finding the flaws in your logic. Your equations were humanity's only hope, but they were not enough. You stood on the bridge of the Wanderer, which now served as the command center. You watched the battle unfold on the main screen. You saw the ships vanish. You felt the fear of the crews. The storm in your head was raging. The Elder Ones had warned you. You could not fight the paradox with conventional logic. You had to meet it on its own terms. You had to speak its language. You knew what you had to do. The final number. The one perfect equation that would solve the flaw in reality. You left the bridge. You went to a small, isolated broadcast room at the heart of the ship. It was designed to send a signal to the entire fleet. You stood before the microphone. But you would not speak with your voice. You would speak with your mind. You closed your eyes. You pushed aside all the other numbers, all the chaos. You reached into the storm. You found the one, single, beautiful, and terrifying truth. An equation that defined existence by defining its opposite. A formula that could contain a paradox by balancing it against itself. You opened your mind to the broadcast system. You did not send words or images. You sent the equation. It flowed out from the Wanderer. It touched the minds of every human in the fleet. It surged through the communication network. It was beamed across the entire Sol system. It was a wave of pure, conceptual thought. A single, perfect number spoken into the void. It was the answer to a question the universe had been afraid to ask. You stood before the invading void, and you spoke its true name. The effect was instantaneous and silent. The great, consuming cloud of darkness stopped moving. It began to tremble, not like something physical, but like a glitch in a simulation. The paradox at its heart, the living equation of ruin, had been met by its perfect counter-argument. Your equation did not attack it. It completed it. It gave the paradox the one thing it lacked: a solution. A zero cannot exist on its own. It needs a one to give it context. You provided the one. The darkness folded in on itself. The impossible logic that held it together collapsed. It was being unwritten, not destroyed, but erased from the timeline. The hole in reality healed itself. Stars that had been missing for moments reappeared. The light of the universe rushed back in to fill the space where the void had been. The paradox collapsed under its own impossibility. The darkness was unwritten from reality. The siege was over. The war was won by a single thought. The fleet was silent. The crews looked out at a normal, star-filled sky. The terror was gone, replaced by a profound sense of awe. They understood what had happened, not with their minds, but with a deeper part of their consciousness that had been touched by your equation. The universe felt more stable, more real. It was as if a cosmic error had been corrected. A universe had been reborn. You had saved them all, but your work was not finished. In the quiet aftermath, the voice of the Elder Ones returned to your mind. They showed you visions of other places, other realities, parallel to your own. Some were vastly different. Some were only slightly changed. But many of them had their own flaws, their own paradoxes, their own darkness gathering at the edges. They had not been searching for a warrior. They had been searching for a healer, a cosmic physician to mend the broken bones of existence. Your task was not yet over. Humanity was safe. They had your knowledge. They could now defend themselves. They could explore the stars not as conquerors, but as guardians. They had learned the language of light. Now, you had to walk a new path. The Star Walker's path. Other universes needed your voice. Your gift was not meant for one people or one galaxy. It was meant for all of reality. You knew you had to leave. You left as you arrived, silently. The Wanderer, your impossible ship, turned away from the sun. It faced the deep, endless dark between the galaxies. Dr. Thorne stood on the bridge of his own ship. He watched you go. He did not try to stop you. He understood. You were not theirs to keep. You were a force of nature, a whisper from the void that had become the voice of creation. The Wanderer did not streak away into the distance. It simply faded. One moment it was there, a silver teardrop against the stars. The next, it was gone. You left humanity as a legend. The silent star child who spoke in equations. The boy who defeated the darkness with a single number. They no longer looked at the void between the stars with fear. They looked at it with hope. They knew that reality was a complex and beautiful equation. And they knew that somewhere, out in the infinite cosmos, the boy was still there, balancing the numbers, keeping the universal song in tune, and the echoes of the boy who saved them all would guide them for generations to come.